Hello, this is Leanne Maceo with Poets and Quants. Thank you all very much for joining us for the summer edition of our Online MBA event. I am pleased to have three special guests joining me for this session. Current online MBA students who are here to share a bit about their respective programs, their experience, why they chose to pursue the degree, and also share with you their advice for as you are considering various programs. So I appreciate all of you for being here. We know many of you will be watching this in days and weeks to come, but for those who are watching live, do feel free to pop any questions into the Q&A or the chat, and I will do my best to make sure that they are addressed. So I would love to begin by getting to know a bit about each of you. So Ariel, I will start with you. If you can kind of share where you are based, your current job and role, and a fun or interesting fact about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Sounds great. So my name again is Ariel Smith. I'm based in the Columbus, Ohio area, and I'm currently a product manager for a company called Cover My Meds, which is basically a healthcare IT company in the Columbus area. And then fun fact about me is I am a huge video game and board game fanatic. So we have like bi-weekly board game, little events, and everything with a couple of friends. So that's it about me.
Great, thank you for being here. Brooke, you'd like to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about where you are, what you do, and something interesting.
Absolutely, thank you. So my name is Brooke Buckley, and I'm a general surgeon currently serving as Chief Medical Officer of Henry Ford Wyandotte Hospital, and the Vice President of Medical Affairs for the Henry Ford system. I also am boarded in lifestyle medicine, so have some diverse background there, or at least different interests. I'm a Flex MBA student at Johns Hopkins, where I was also an undergrad, and I've been out in surgical practice for over 13 years. And my fun fact, I guess, would be that I have 3 sons that are within 24 months of each other.
Wow.
2 are twins.
Great. Well, thank you very much for being here. And Sean.
Yeah, my name is Sean Daly. I am living down in Sarasota, Florida. And my current role, I am the president and chief of anesthesiology for a private anesthesia group that provides services at the local community hospital down here. It's a large community hospital. I am a recent graduate, actually, of the UMASS Amherst Isenberg School of Management, having just finished this spring. So happy to share my experiences throughout that journey. I did the part-time online MBA program, so be very happy to share those experiences. As far as interesting facts, I too also have 3 children, all within 22 months of each other. So, and in my spare time, I still compete in competitive age group triathlons throughout the country too.
Wow, great. Well, thank you all for being here. With a MBA focused publication, we don't normally have 2 medical field participants, so this is actually great because we do know that there are so many people who have preconceptions about going into an MBA program, and look forward to having you share your specific experiences with our viewers. So let's start talking about just making the decision, where you were in your career, what led you to think about an online MBA. Did you consider another type of program, whether it was a full-time program or another business degree? And kind of talk us through that process. So Sean, I'll stay with you if you'd like to walk us through your thought process there.
Yeah, sure. So from the physician's standpoint, there's an interesting program through the American Association of Physician Leaders, and they have some affiliations with multiple MBA programs and masters in healthcare administration. And I started taking some courses through that that association, And wasn't really sure where that would lead me or what my interest level was going to be at that time. That was probably about, I'd say 8 to 10 years ago. And I really found the courses and the coursework very interesting, and really outside of the realm of practical medicine, and it really piqued my interest in, where can I go from there. And that's when I started to explore these part-time MBA programs, and even some full-time programs at the time. Actually, my family was young at that time, and I thought, yeah, maybe I could go, for a week or two away, or a weekend or two away to be on campus. But after really looking into it, I found that part-time online MBA program was the best way to go. And after having done it, I would say that I made the right decision. Being a physician and looking into the business world, it seems a stretch. However, the practice of medicine has changed dramatically over the years. And having some business knowledge and business expertise as you pursue different leadership roles has really become essential.
Great, thank you. And what was it about UMass that led you to choose that program?
Yeah, so a couple different choices, but when I looked at the UMass program, I specifically wanted something that was a true MBA program. I felt like I had, through leadership experiences, practically throughout the hospital systems and my work experiences, I learned a lot about healthcare management and healthcare administration. And to me, the missing link really was that true business aspect of things. And UMass, offered, a true MBA program. And I felt really that for me, that was going to be a real learning experience, and had proven to be that.
Great. Brooke, what about you? Can you share a little bit about your thought process pursuing the degree? Why did you end up at Johns Hopkins?
Sure, absolutely. So, interesting listening to Sean's background, because I have always been an employed physician, and so never really in the position to have to run my own business. But as an employed physician and someone who was doing a hospitalist role, which is a shift work role inside the hospital as a surgeon, was raising my hand for a lot of opportunities for leadership and realizing that I didn't have the right vocabulary and the right language. And I think a term that people have used that I really like is the passive credibility. So as a doctor, you know a lot of stuff and you have a lot of expertise, but not at all in business. And so that passive credibility of having an advanced degree tends to be really helpful to be able to sort of shortcut and get you into different conversations that you might want to be in leadership. So for me, probably I waited about 5 years between when I thought about it and when I actually applied. And some of that was plotting and scheming to get somebody to help pay for it. To be honest. And I had the same kind of thought processes around a quote real MBA or an equivalent degree versus an executive MBA. I also looked into master's in public health and healthcare administration. Sort of had the original thought, I want an advanced degree to get that additional credibility, but which pieces will I need? Not really knowing what direction I was going to head. At the time, I was all clinical and doing some administrative work as the chair of my department. So I ended up applying really only to Hopkins. I was there as an undergrad. I was living in Annapolis, so it was geographically close. And pre-COVID, Hopkins had several opportunities for on-campus and/or hybrid learning, going back and forth to campus or being online. And so I thought that I would leverage that opportunity. It turned out that I only did one weekend so far in person, and everything else has been online, and that actually has worked out really well. And I also am very much part-time, only taking one class a year. So I started in 2019 and I still have one more year to go, and have taken a course every semester. So and using this as an opportunity to move slowly through the curriculum and absorb what's there. I think that's probably all the pieces, right?
It is, yes. Thank you very
Excellent.
much. That was helpful. Ariel, what about you? Talk us through your thought process and why you ultimately chose Case Western.
Yeah, so I actually talked with a lot of colleagues and friends that had done MBA programs, and the ones that were really considering more of a full-time option were either really wanting to make a career switch and go into a totally different industry, or they just really wanted to get into a different company. Um, so for me, that wasn't really something I was really interested in. I absolutely love the company that I'm working for now. I've been here for over 5.5 years, coming on 6. I'm really passionate about the mission that the company has of helping people get the medicine they need to live healthier lives. So for me, I wanted to still have an MBA program, which would give me the opportunity to enhance my skills and be a better professional and be able to more holistically attack that mission of the company without changing my industry or my career trajectory. And then also, I wanted something that was going to be flexible. Work-life balance is really important to me. So I wanted to continue working, continue growing in my career, but I also wanted to have something that I could grow with and still do on the side. So with Case Western, it's been an amazing opportunity. The main reason that I chose Case Western is because I wanted something that would be flexible with the online MBA program, but I also wanted something that would still be around the field that I was in, which is in healthcare. So they have the healthcare management track for the online MBA program, which turned out to be a perfect fit. And at the same time, it also gives me the opportunity to have that flexibility with online learning, but also once a year get to meet in person for a residency with my colleagues who are also going through the same process as I am. So I'm sure we'll go into this later, but I've had an amazing experience working with my cohort and my group specifically, which we go through the entire 3 years with. So that was really the kind of tiebreaker that made me go with Case Western.
Sorry, my dog was barking, so I put myself on mute. That's an excellent segue, and I'm going to stick with you, Ariel, to talk a little bit about the learning experience. So tell us about what it's like to take the online program at Case Western. How many classes do you take at a time? How do you interact with other students, with your professors, and share that with us?
Yeah, it's been really cool, actually. I was really nervous going into this program, but it's been an amazing experience. So generally in a semester, you will either take 2 or 3 classes. If you have 2 classes, it'll be 3 credits each, basically. So you'll have those 2 classes for the entire semester. Or if you take 3 classes, one of those classes is going to last the entire semester, while the other 2 will be 1.5 credits each and will flip-flop halfway through the semester. So you'll never be taking more than 2 classes at one time, which has been really great for me, just to make sure that I'm still getting a little bit of that personal time outside of work and school. And it's generally been kind of like going off and on between qualitative and quantitative. So for example, last semester, it was a little bit more quantitative with accounting for managers, as well as kind of more evidence. Oh, sorry, there's my cat. It's great that's recorded. And a more like advanced statistics course on probabilistic and deterministic models and statistics. And then this semester has been a little bit more focused on the qualitative, which is managing people in organizations, regulatory issues in healthcare, as well as organizational culture in healthcare systems. So it's been kind of nice to do an on and off sort of structure with the program, where you get to kind of use different sides of your brain as you're going through it. And then in terms of the actual like assignments, it's kind of half and half, where you have half individual assignments, half group assignments. It might lean a little bit more towards group assignments, but you're basically assigned with one specific group for your entire program. So regardless of what class you're in, you are always with this core group. So for me, I have a group of 5 individuals, including myself. And we're all based in the Columbus area. I'm sure that was probably part of the process, but it's been an amazing experience collaborating with them. And it's just been really great to get a lot of different perspectives of people that work in different parts of the healthcare industry. So I've grown very, very close with them. And, we've had lots of in-person meetings as well as virtual meetings. But that's kind of like you go through this entire program with that group. So hopefully I covered all the questions, but let me know if I missed anything.
You did. That was a great overview. Sean, share with us a little bit about the learning experience. How many classes at a time? How do you work with your teams, etc.?
Yeah, sure. So, having been a little farther removed from the classroom learning experience, I also was, sort of apprehensive going back into school. And so similar to Brooke, we have the ability at UMass to choose kind of your speed of coursework. So being full-time, work and full-time home, I decided to go with a kind of one class a semester as well. And that, that was the best option for me. And that path was laid out with the help of, the MBA advisor at UMass, who was extremely helpful in helping kind of lay out that similar pattern that Ariel had described of, hitting the quantitative and qualitative at different times. So you could really, focus on those specific areas at each step along the way. So that having that path laid out was really excellent, and the expectations of hours per week were also part of that path. So I had a good idea of is this going to be possible this time of year for me given the work volume and stuff, and so I was able to kind of tweak that a little bit as things went on. From the online classroom experience was a totally new thing for me. I mean, obviously I grew up in the era of sitting in a wooden desk. So, having all my courses online was something new, but, obviously, the world of technology is amazing now. So, we had really a mix of different things depending on the coursework. If we were doing, the true business mathematics and accounting courses, we had problem sets to work through, quizzes and interaction with the professor through an online portal, online office hours were also part of that. So we could kind of get in there, and if we had some questions, want to work through some problems, we had that capabilities. When it came to more of the qualitative things, like some of the things that Ariel had described, we had classroom discussions were a big part of our learning experience as well. So each week there was an expectation of being part of a small classroom discussion group with some questions led by the professors, but really allowing us to work through those questions together and pose questions to each other. And we had groups of anywhere between 10 and 20 people in those small groups, and that was really a cool experience, to be honest. Because we also had people from diverse fields. There were a few physicians, then there were people who were in marketing, who were in business, who were in different parts of the world, and having that interaction and really just seeing these questions answered from different perspectives was really, really cool to me. And that really opened my eyes and my mind to really thinking about things not from a physician's or healthcare perspective, but really from a true business perspective.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. How many, so because you mentioned it earlier in your response, Sean, on average, how many hours a week would you generally spend on your coursework?
Yes, a good question. So some of the courses were a little bit less labor intensive, and I think we were looking at between 8 and 9 hours a week for some of those, to some of the more labor intensive, getting upwards of about 12 hours per week.
Okay.
So for me, working full time, that was some of those were fit in perfect. And if I was on call and I was off the next day, I knew I had the whole next day to do some work. So
yeah, great.
Yeah.
And just before I move to you, Brooke, Ariel, is that about the same time-wise for you?
Yeah, it really ebbs and flows depending upon what classes that you have, or maybe how familiar you are with the subject matter content. But I'd probably say for us, it's a little bit, maybe upwards of that, maybe 15 to 20 hours a week, roughly. But right now, I'd say that was the first 2 semesters, and this semester has been a little bit lighter. So I'd agree with Sean where it's a little bit lower than that, but that's generally the range that I've been working in.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right, Brooke, love to hear about the learning experience at Johns Hopkins.
Yeah, so my experience has been fairly similar, and I think that's sort of the nature of the online programs. You can take 2 or even 3 courses per 8-week cycle. I have a couple of times taken 2 in an 8-week cycle, and I have to say, trying to juggle life and work and the schedule of 2 different courses, that I tend to get so lost in what's due when and where and how to turn it in, that for me, it's just much easier to take one at a time. And so I've made the conscious decision to go slow and just enjoy the ride. But for people, I actually had a physician friend in my cohort who was taking 3 classes and working and had children. So it's doable if you're tech savvy like that and enjoy that. We use the Blackboard online learning tool, and there's a lot of discussions, which I've really enjoyed being a remote student, being able to engage in those kind of water cooler discussions, or the facsimiles of hallway conversations by, texting and chatting through some of those discussion prompts. And generally, there's a pretty regular cadence for a lot of these courses where they want you to do a discussion by Thursday, respond to several of them by Sunday, and then there's usually a major assignment due on Sunday nights by midnight. And so it's worked out really nice as a working person with a relatively regular schedule that I can, reliably use the weekends to cram. So, similarly, you're able to at least plan out the places. Now, for me, I'm speaking in San Diego on Sunday, and I have a huge assignment due Friday. So I woke up at 3 o'clock this morning to get it done before work. And so you do those things when you're a student. About 80% of the work, I would say, is team-based. There are options for individual. I've personally enjoyed the team-based. I've enjoyed the interaction. We also, as you would expect, have, engineers and finance people and marketers and cybersecurity people. And so it's been really cool to meet people outside of my field. And I've learned a lot from those people. And actually, even though we aren't in person, I have several people that I correspond with regularly via text, and we, iterate and collaborate on things. And so it's been really fun to kind of pick up people along the way and then try to track courses with them. So we don't have that same kind of cohort that goes through necessarily. I'd say it's rare for me to be in a class with someone I've been in a class with before. Again, I'm taking the super slow road, but you can, track and sign up with somebody else, or, sort of ping pong around what you're learning. So that's been really fun. And then I guess the only other piece in terms of the quantitative and the writing courses, also a lot of flexibility to be able to balance your interests or specializations around, entrepreneurship or healthcare leadership or finance or those kinds of things. And so you can kind of, I'm not a quant, so I try to avoid a lot of the numeric classes or time them, with COVID surges over the last 2 years. So, there's a lot of ability to navigate in terms of what works for your life and what works for the way you think.
Great. And about how many hours on average per week with your, one course?
Yeah, great question. So I tend to spend about 10 hours a week, I think is probably fair. What I would say is, as a busy person trying to do this, I shortcut a lot of the reading when able. And so you can spend a lot of time, and there's amazing resources. And I guess that, has been, if I could go back and do it again, I'd love to have spent more time with some of the material, but practically speaking, when you're doing these and working, you're trying to survive some of it.
Right. No, of course. So outside of academics, and Sean, we'll start with you on this one, whether, you participate or not, how does the school help to foster, whether it's student clubs and organizations or networking between yourselves and your cohort and alums or recruiters, or, how does the program support building the community?
Yeah, so kind of similar. So through the courses themselves, a lot of connections are made. Sort of like Brooke alluded to. I did have a slightly different experience where I did have probably a handful of similar of the same people in my courses as we went along. So we kind of had that similar learning experience. So we were able to make, direct connections through the courses themselves. Outside of the coursework, I think most of our things were through Blackboard themselves. So connections through announcements on Blackboard and even email blasts and resources throughout the university themselves. So we had access to really all the university libraries. I even got emails about sporting events, which I thought was pretty cool. I thought it was, hey, maybe I'll go catch a basketball game if I'm ever up there. But a lot of that stuff, it kind of made you feel like, you were part of a campus when you were, the farthest point south from Massachusetts you could get. So there was a lot of that, and I think that was the cool part for me is those resources and those connections were constantly in my inbox or posted on Blackboard, and even like I said, those direct connections via email or text with some of my classmates that I spent the 3 or 4 years together with. So it was it was cool.
Great. Brooke, what about Johns Hopkins in terms of student organizations, clubs? How are they helping to support the networking amongst the groups?
Yeah, so those after school type clubs, there are certainly a lot of announcements and a lot of invitations and opportunities. They post a lot of different social aspects. Hopkins has a Baltimore and a DC campus. So there are a lot of people that sort of live in that greater, DC, Baltimore area. And it at least appears by the emails that there's a lot of getting together there. The courses have had these residencies, and you can choose to pick a lot of the courses that have the weekend long 3-4 day residencies. I did get to do one of those in person, and it was a lot of fun. They had social events planned. They had philanthropy events planned. So there were a lot of, connections that were able to be made during that period of time. And then, beyond that, I think that there's the ability to, connect through the coursework itself, and people make those organic kind of external connections, and even try to connect people with people they know in the cities where they are that are, in the broader network. So the more informal side. And the only other thing that I would add, which Hopkins has, which is super cool that I've not been able to take advantage of, is they do a January course, a short course that's abroad. And so it's a cohort of about 7 or 8 people that go to Brazil or to Germany or something and do a fully immersive. And some of them are just purely like physical survival immersive team building things. And they've done panels with those students that have come back, and clearly they are life altering experiences. So they do 2 to 3 of those every year. So you can actually hit several of them while you're a student.
Wow, that's great. Well, hopefully, maybe perhaps since you're taking your time,
That's right.
then it'll work out for you at some point for you to take part in that experience. That sounds amazing. Ariel, what about Case Western and the building the community in terms of helping you network and join student clubs and organizations?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a lot of different things which I probably should take more advantage of, to be honest, that have been mentioned. There's a lot of networking events that they're constantly talking about, whether it's virtual or in person within the Cleveland area, as well as kind of like assistance with salary negotiation exercises or resume services to help you if you're interested in moving outside of your current organization or getting into a new industry. And then outside of that, I actually have this next week for the first time, which I'm very excited about, is our in-person residency, which is, I think it's 3.5 days long. And we do an in-person residency once a year, which is 3 years of the program, basically, so 3 times, where they arrange for us to work with a number of different major hospital systems within the Cleveland area, and meet with executive leadership, make connections that way, as well as within our own team and peers within the program. And they also arrange some more like fun, activities like happy hours, going out to dinner together, all of that, like more camaraderie sort of stuff. So there's a lot of things, like they put in a ton of effort to be able to connect students with each other, and even some of our assignments, especially more in the managing kind of people, leadership kind of classes, that we are required to do like a social hour, whether it's virtual or in person with our groups, to make sure that we're forming those connections. And I would say that's a major part of like why me and my group have become so close with one another, is because they kind of force you with each other, which I'm very, very grateful for. So just like I think Brooke had said, I can't remember, Sean, having like a texting group and everything. I swear we text each other every single day, whether it's about school or something else. So there's a lot of opportunities where they kind of like try to get that social element out there.
Right. So let's talk work-life balance. And Brooke, we'll start with you. We've got school, we've got work, we've got speaking engagements, we've got 3 children within 24 months of each other. Hopefully a social life in there somewhere. What are some tools or that you use to kind of help you manage everything?
Yeah, so going slow is my mainstay, and I tend to look for classes that have syllabi that look like they have a cadence that's what I'm used to. Again, because I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to learn how to use Blackboard and how to navigate the actual class. I want to be able to just dive in and do the content, and I'm not somebody who's hugely tech savvy, so I tend to kind of trend that way. And so they do the syllabus early, and you can kind of get a sense of when are you turning in assignments and how much of it is math problems versus written papers and that kind of stuff. So I use those tools, sort of knowing how I learn, to try to select courses that line up with what I'm doing in my real life. I also draw out a written calendar and sort of keep stuff color coded and really tightly designed there. But then I also, more so differently than I ever did in my medical degree, sometimes I selectively choose to not take things as seriously, or more seriously. I'm not trying to get the A in every class. I'm trying to get the content that I need to be better at my job. And so that's been a transition for me as a learner. But as an adult learner that's trying to add to my skills and not trying to get my first job, it's a little bit of a different focus. And I think that's been a really sort of important life path as well, that you don't always have to be working for that. And I think the other thing that I'll just add in I don't know if it was pre-pandemic or but I think it will be permanent coming out of, is that the professors are very much keyed into that we are adult learners and that we are trying to navigate a bunch of things. And actually, I just had a very disappointing midterm exam, and I emailed my professor because he had suggested that there was going to be some remediation opportunity. And his response to me, which I thought was, I'm in cybersecurity, not my forte. His response to me was, there is no embarrassment in educating yourself. And someday when you're CEO, you'll look back at this phase of your education and laugh. And I just thought, what a human way to respond to that. And he's like, stick with it, keep going, we're almost there. And so there's been just so much human engagement in terms of, this is real life, get it done, be kind to yourself, and keep going, because they know that all of us are there to learn and to try to grow. So that's been really cool too.
Great, it's a great anecdote. Sean, things to add to that or build on around work-life balance?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of add on top of that. I think, my experience with UMASS is similar, knowing the course that you're signed up for, and knowing what that syllabus looks like, and how's that going to pan out for you that 8 to 12 week time in your life, and knowing that cadence of the coursework, knowing, hey, I have a discussion to be part of in the beginning of the week and a discussion to be part of at the end of the week, and how's that going to fit into my week, and planning kind of around that, knowing, hey, I got kids softball practice and kids lacrosse practice, and I'm on call another night, so where's that going to fit into my week, and planning that ahead, and knowing how to fit that in, and then likewise knowing when you have those big assignments or those big papers to do or those big problem sets to finish up, carving out maybe a couple hours on the weekend and planning for those time points were really key. And then also knowing your limitations too, and I think that's also part of it. are there going to be weeks where maybe I'm going to be swamped at work, or I got a lot of real important business decisions to make, and getting with the professors and saying, hey, I might need a little extra time this week. Can I push some work off a week? And they are very receptive to that. They are understanding of what you're doing in your life and understanding of what you're doing in your career, and really seeing that point of things. As long as you get the work done, they were very flexible with those things. Obviously, the discussions are different because those are real time, but those things that aren't real time were very flexible, really throughout all my courses. And I think that was a big part of my success is knowing that and not being afraid to contact them and say, I got a really tough week coming up, and how are we going to work with that? And so I think that was a big part of it, really just planning ahead, knowing what your schedule's like, and then finding that place that works best for you. And for me, UMass was it. I mean, the way it was laid out really worked into my schedule and my work-life balance.
Great. And Ariel, what about you? How have you managed work-life balance, or what would your advice be for those thinking about the online MBA and how to navigate that?
Yeah, that was something that I was actually most nervous about probably when I was starting an MBA or considering starting an MBA, because my personal time and work-life balance is of utmost importance to me. Just so I can spend time with my family and friends and all of that. I will say I'm probably a little bit luckier, or maybe it's a bit easier on me because me and my husband are still pretty young in our careers and we don't have children yet. So maybe a little bit more time on our hands than some of my coworkers. So that does contribute to it, which is, kind of the reason why I started this now and not later too. That played into my decision-making process. But you'll see the part or the type A come out in me through this. I actually keep a physical planner. So I find it like really therapeutic to actually write down all of my assignments starting at the very beginning of the semester. I'll look through the syllabi that I have for my classes, mark down the major assignment dates, mark down the major trips that I'm taking or vacations or major professional milestones, that I need to hit at certain points in time. And I'll sort of identify where there might be areas where I'm a little bit more crammed, a little bit more stressed. So I'll work with my professors, I'll work with my cohort, my individual group that I'm going through the program with, and just identify any areas where I might think I might struggle a little bit. And I'll either try to work ahead of those assignments, or I'm very, very lucky again. It's kind of Brooke and Sean have mentioned, having professors that are really understanding in areas where you're going to struggle a little bit, or have more of that time crunch. I'm working with my group also to cover each other when we actually are maybe a little bit more, on, I guess, time limitation. But yeah, having a physical planner has actually made all the difference for me, because being able to see it out, on a page makes it easier to manage and to control. So that's kind of been my way of managing everything. But so far, it's actually been a lot better than I anticipated, work-life balance wise. I try to protect my weekends as much as possible. So generally, I find what's best for me is after work is over around 5 p.m. I generally try to do like 2 hours of work a night. And then I have the rest of the night free just to be able to relax, enjoy myself, work out, all that good stuff.
All right. Good advice all around. So I've got let's see, an either or question, or you can answer either one of these questions. What has been the highlight of the program, or what has been the biggest surprise of your experience? And Ariel, I'll stick with you for this.
Oh, hard question. I think it's, maybe I'm going to hit two questions at the same time. The thing that's been the best part and the thing that's also been the biggest surprise is how connected and engaged I feel with my cohort and with my group. I think going into an online program, I had the assumption that it'd be a little bit more, courteous, polite, just working at our own pace sort of thing with each other. And I've just formed such a close bond and connection with a lot of people in my program that I didn't anticipate through the virtual platform. So that's probably been the biggest surprise for me.
All right. Brooke, biggest surprise or highlight?
Yeah, that's a tough one, but I think for me, it's been easier than I thought it would be. Meaning, and you have this other question here about, how far have you been out and could you go back and that kind of stuff. And so I had a very significant kind of, I'm just a doctor and it's going to be too hard and I'm not really sure. And the spoon-sized, pieces that they keep giving you and the way that the work is designed is very approachable. And so I think that it's built my confidence in my administrative roles, which I was already, doing okay, finding my way in. The sort of additive and almost exponential nature, I took crisis management during one of the COVID surges, right? And so it parlays so well into, it's changed my parenting maybe in some ways, right? But there's these pieces that you pick up. And I think, many of us are lifelong learners. And so to be able to be actively engaged in something that's organized that way and to enhance your daily work. I didn't anticipate that. I thought I was just going to slog through to get a degree because I had to, and it's been really fun.
Right. And Sean, anything to add to that around surprises or the highlights from the program?
Yeah, sure. I think for me, the biggest, I approached this as like a task when I first started. Like, this is something I really want to get done. I want to do this, and see what I learned from it. And I think, my biggest surprise was that each course and each step along the way, not only did I learn more, but I found each course more interesting than the previous one. And I think that was what, not being in the business world, being in healthcare, you're wondering, how is this going to pertain to me? Or am I actually going to enjoy learning about some of these things? And I think each course, whether it was, accounting and, mathematical principles to, which I'm a bit of a math nerd, so I kind of like those courses. But then, getting into more of those non-quantitative aspects, and I found those just exceedingly interesting, and not just the things that I could take away and apply them to my profession and to the business part of my profession, but also reading books about the HR management or cultural leadership. And that stuff was just really cool and interesting to me. And I remember one course we took, we were watching the movie Miracle with about the 1980 US hockey team. And that was about, leadership skills. And that was what we wrote about. And just that kind of thing just surprised me, and my interest continued to peak as the coursework went on. So I think it was really how fun and how interesting I ended up feeling about the coursework itself.
So my last question, getting into your advice, and Sean, I'm going to stay with you. Again, we're all in the healthcare field here, which I love. So someone who is, in that field and has thought about it, but in terms of getting an online MBA, but has said, will it really help me? Is it worth it? Is it worth the time, the investment? Having to figure out how to, do all the work-life balance that we just spoke about. What are your words for them or your advice?
Yeah, so I think if you have people like that are thinking about it, then that's the first step, right? So if you're thinking about doing it, then you obviously have aspirations to do something with it, whether it's going to help you in a private practice setting like myself, where you need to know how to run a business, but you also need to know how the hospital finances are affecting the hospital and how they're affecting your business, and how do you manage your employees within your business. We have probably over 100 people in our group, so if you're thinking about how would this help me, think about what you're doing and how that will pertain to you. And I think Brooke will probably answer, she's in a little different position in what she does, but obviously it benefits someone that's in that part of the healthcare field too, outside of private practice. There's plenty of nuances within a hospital setting that you need physician leadership and someone that's also savvy in managerial and business aspects of things. So to me, I think if you're thinking about it, and then you're thinking about doing something with it already. So yeah, is it a challenge to go through this process? Yes, of course, but you know, there are ways to succeed in that challenge, and I think, you know, what you've heard from each of us tonight is that it's a doable challenge, and one you come out at the end feeling like you made the right decision.
Ariel, your piece of advice for someone considering an online MBA?
It's hard to follow that up. That was a good answer, Sean. I think for me, my advice would be don't let the fear get in the way of you making this big decision. Because for me, I was really nervous about the quantitative aspects. I had been out of school for 6 years, which doesn't seem like that much, I guess, in hindsight, you know, from college and to starting this MBA program. But I, you know, did not do well in statistics when I was in college, and I was a good student. That was the one that gave me the biggest problem in the world, and I was so frustrated by it at the time. And it actually ended up being my favorite course so far that I've really enjoyed. So as you grow, you know, you just gain new skills, and you know, you can't let yourself stand in the way of something that's such a great opportunity where you learn so much. And I just know for me personally, I've gained so many more skills and just a different way of thinking, which I didn't anticipate, that it just changes you in ways that you don't anticipate. So don't let the fear stand in the way, and definitely speak with all your peers, all of your colleagues, anyone that you know that has done an MBA program. Do as much research as you possibly can to find out what's going to be best for you and your work-life balance.
And Brooke, the final word goes to you. Parting advice.
Well, I mean, it's building on all the things. I think we're all very much aligned, and I think what you hear is that you can't really choose wrong. You just look for what's a good fit for you. And I think, you know, we're going to all be years older, years down the road, and you may be there with or without you know, a degree or an education that you're curious in that might transform the way you think about your work and your life. And so there is no good time to start. So go ahead and jump in, and the courses are designed to help us succeed. The schools are oriented towards our success. We are successful people coming into this work, and so we will be successful coming out. And so that support is there, and just have faith in the fact that they want you to succeed and that you will. I was out of school for 20 years, and they had me do a pre-test of a whole bunch of things. And I sat with the CFO of my hospital at night after work for a couple of weeks before I got admitted, you know, working through various math problems and trying to get my brain working that way again, learning how to use Excel. I had never even tried Excel before in my life. You know, and honestly, using some of those online tools has been one of the technology has been some of the greatest skills that we've built. But what I would also say is I think we're in such an important time in history where there's redesign of our careers and our work. And so it's an amazing time to start gaining new skills and to jump in and believe in yourself and know that you can do hard things.
Well, I'm inspired. Brooke, Sean, Ariel, thank you all so much for taking some time to share your experience and the experience at your program with us and our readers. You all are really fantastic ambassadors for your respective programs. So thank you for joining us. Thank you all for watching. I'm Leanne Maceo with Poets and Quants. Thank you. Bye-bye.